Hey there, friends. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of An Artist's Way of Healing. I am your host, Jonathan Palmiotti. I am excited you're here. Today, we have a really exciting guest speaker who has graciously made time to inspire us on her journey and to tell a story on how the arts has inspired her to become who and where she is today. Today, I present to you Liliana Cabrera from New York, New York. Liliana, please say hi to our listeners.
Hi, listeners.
Liliana is an accomplished chef in the culinary arts. Transitioning from a music career to the culinary world at 28, Liliana embarked on a diverse journey. From interning with Alex Garnaschelli at Butter to cooking in kitchens at boutique hotels and leading the kitchen teams at luxury brand catering companies, she found her calling with Red Rabbit. Now, the senior regional director for New York and New Jersey, she celebrates diverse cultures through food, fostering healthy visions for children, and breaking societal boundaries. Liliana's rewarding journey reflects personal growth and community impact. Liliana, I know that you work for Red Rabbit. Can you just tell our audiences a little bit about the company and what the mission is and what your inspiration was to working for the company?
Red Rabbit is one of the largest Black-owned companies for school food. But really, we're a social justice company, uplifting children from Black and Brown communities through chef-prepared meals that are culturally relevant. We're from the community that we serve. I mean, I've been with Red Rabbit going on 7 years now, I think. And what really inspired me to even just apply was their mission. I think at the time that I was looking for a new job, I wanted to really work for something that was meaningful. And I had spent a lot of years just working for luxury. I worked for a luxury brand catering company, and it's just not seeing the food be appreciated the way that it needed to be was just not fun for me. And so moving into a company like this, where that's like just their mission and their vision was something that really drew me to them.
Did you come across it accidentally, the organization, or was it like some person maybe told you about it? Or
So no, I was searching at the time, and I came up a few times, but it took me months to apply. Their application process was very thoughtful, and so you really had to kind of like they were asking these really deep questions. And at the time, I was kind of teeter-tottering whether I wanted to leave the current place that I was at, and I was like, I don't know that like I want to answer these such deep questions.
do you mind just sharing a little bit about what those questions were?
Yeah, no, it's not confidential. I mean, I'm pretty sure like they're probably still on the website. It was just a lot of revolving kind of, they do a lot of culture tests, right? To kind of see if you're the right fit for the company. And so really just kind of like asking just that, what's inspiring you to join this company? And I mean, that was my answer back then, that I wanted to kind of leave, work for a place that would really appreciate what I was contributing to it, right? And honestly, work for a place that I'm proud of. At the time, it's always a risk because you never know. I mean, I had read about the company, but now, kind of 6 years in, I mean, I'm extremely proud to work for this company. I don't think I've ever been more proud to work for a company.
What's your favorite thing to do from your day to day and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, my favorite thing to do is my huddle with my teams. Like I connect with them every morning, and at the end of each day, we kind of talk through kind of any successes or opportunities of the day throughout all the kitchens that I manage. And so it's just nice to kind of see, they're very transparent. So they'll be like, we made a really good dish today, and like it was the first time we tried it, and it was really well received. And so like we kind of talk through the highlights, and then they'll talk through like, oh, this actually didn't work well, and so it's just a good conversation back and forth.
And it also gives you the opportunity to also learn about more and more, even though you know them on a professional level, to learn more and more about the employees that you work
Mhm.
with and, their stories because, they have their own stories that it kind of introduce them into the company and why they have their purpose or mission to want to work for the organization.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's honestly my favorite part of my day. I love my team.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like you have to love what you do. But anyway, from past conversations, you mentioned to me that your definition of success within your art is to experience people enjoying your food. Do you mind giving us a little bit of a background on how you got into the culinary arts, ultimately becoming a professional chef? Take us back to the beginning.
Feels like a long time ago now. I mean, I come from a big family of people that love to cook. My dad, several aunts. And so I've always been around food and inspired by food. But it wasn't really until probably like my mid 20s that I myself started to experiment with food. And at the time, I was transitioning out of music because it was also a job that I honestly really enjoyed. I worked for BMI at the time. And they were just moving my department in Nashville. And I didn't want to go. And For me, it presented an opportunity to reinvent myself because there's few performing rights organizations in the US. There's non-compete clauses, so I couldn't work for any of the competitors for 2 years. And so I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna go to culinary school because at the time I was like, I was really passionate about it, and I've always been a person that I want to love what I do because you spend so many hours of your day working. I want to enjoy it,
Yeah.
and so that's always been really, really important to me. And so I went for it, and thankfully, my parents really supported just my decision, because it was scary. I was 28, I'm essentially starting over. I felt at that point, I felt like I should have been a little more established and to kind of restart in a new career, like, is nerve-wracking, but I did it and I have no regrets.
I have the same thing when I was doing musical theater performance. I just remember, just doing a whole 180 turn in regards to the lifestyle. I also was kind of double thinking, like, well, am I making the right decision? And so it was a big change for me. I just remember, how hard it was.
Yeah, I mean, it is, right? Like, you have to be mentally prepared for it.
Yeah.
I knew kind of transitioning that I was gonna take like a huge financial pay cut. I was gonna have to sacrifice a lot of my time. I was gonna have to make just hard decisions, just revolving just even the life that I led, right? Like, when you decide to take to such a dramatic pay cut, like you gotta change some of the things that you do and some of the things that you enjoy. And so like it wasn't a hasty decision.
Okay.
It was something that I wanted to do, and I put a lot of thought about it, but it was scary. I felt like the universe just spoke to me. I feel like it was the right time.
Yeah.
Like if BMI had not moved my department, I probably would have not left, right? I'd probably still be there because it wasn't a job that I hated, at least at that point in time. I don't know if how it would have evolved or where I would have grown. Like they moved my department and I was bummed about it, but like for me, I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. Like cooking is something that I'm really passionate about. I've been doing it a lot on my own time. And I was like, why not? If I have to switch careers or I have to do something, I want to do something that I love. Like, it's funny because my dad is such a practical man. He was always like, just go into finance. And I'm like, I can barely add, so it was just one of those things that I was like, no, that's not where I'm going to find my joy. And I've always been really stubborn about it, like fast forward now, like he's extremely proud of what I've done,
Of course. They only want the best for you.
they only want the best for you, and so I was like, this is my moment. Like, let me just, I enrolled in culinary school, I found a way to finance it myself. And I was just like, I'm going to do this, and I was very well aware that, I was 28. I am now making an investment. Like this was not going to be an opportunity that I was going to mess around with. At that point in time, you don't like throw away money. It's not, so I was just like, this is, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to take it seriously and I'm going to see where this goes, and that's what I did.
Yeah, and honestly, you have to do, and whatever's meant to be is meant to be. You have to do what you were saying, that you love. And also, for a lot of people, it could also be a sense of a healing journey for
Mhm.
them. When we're younger, a lot of the time, we don't know what we want. And we realize, oh, this is maybe my calling. This is how I can help myself. This is how I can help other people. And, we had a lot of conversation about you enjoying to want to help and wanting to help your community and provide things to the community that you really felt was part of your own personal mission. I really think that's so important for a lot of people to understand and a lot of people to grow within themselves and to just be able to say that I'm doing this because I want to be more, I want to do more, and I want to impact the world. And I really think that's great. As a chef, are there any specific culinary art role models that inspire you to start doing your art?
Yeah, what's interesting is that when I really started to get into cooking, I wasn't necessarily watching like cooking shows. And Alex Carnicelli is a person who I do admire, but I actually didn't even know who she was until I was in culinary school because she did a demonstration at the school. And for me, I was like, this is a badass woman. And she's a chef. And she's like, she's on Chops and she has this restaurant. And like it was it was like for me watching her was like, oh, okay, like I could be a badass woman. And I had an opportunity to kind of chat with her. And I essentially told her that I was like, wow, like, this is really cool to kind of meet you. She was kind of touched by it and we exchanged numbers. And when the few months later, she reached out to me and offered me an internship.
Oh,
And so, and that was great. I mean, it was one of the best experiences of my life. I mean, it was hard work. Working at a restaurant is not for the faint of heart. Also just cooking in general. Like this is definitely one of those careers that you have to love to do. Like if you don't love to do it, you shouldn't do it. Because otherwise like you'll feel it in the food. And so yeah, so I think, they that point in time when I worked or interned at Butter, like was working 12-hour days. I was, out the house early, home late. I missed a lot of family functions and, family's a big deal for me. I think, that was the first time in my life where I missed holidays. And I knew coming into culinary that like I was going to want to find something that was more of a work-life balance for me. I knew restaurants wasn't going to be my long term, but I knew it was important for me to understand it. And I don't regret it. I think it made me that experience and that cooking on the line and kind of learning just kind of like the timing and, how to just kind of, expedite it helps me in every other job that I took after that.
What does being an artist actually mean to you? And what kind of feelings spark inside you when you think about being an artist?
And I guess, I mean, an artist to me is being able to express yourself. Food is very much my love language, right? Like that's the way I do enjoy expressing myself. And I was also in music for many years, but what's interesting is that when I was in music and I was performing, I still prefer to be behind the scenes. Culinary is perfect, right? Like I get to stay in my kitchen, I get to like zone out, I get to do what I need to do, and then I get to present everything to everyone and then they can kind of taste it, but it kind of takes the pressure off of it for me. And so that's what I really love. But like ultimately, I love cooking for people that I love. And so,
And you're still expressing yourself,
yeah,
and you may not be doing it in front of people. However, you could be if you go to like Hell's Kitchen or something like that.
I could.
And
I mean, I feel like I contribute, right? Like even at work, I run all these menu meetings with our chefs. And so like I'm helping them kind of like pull out what their inspiration is and how we're gonna like incorporated into these menus, right? No two schools have the same menu, right? It's really based on we think about the demographic of the school, we think about the chef themselves. And so like we have these weekly menu meetings to kind of like talk through that, to kind of, like they get to talk me through their thought process or their inspiration for a dish. And it's really much a play, right? Like sometimes they'll spark something and I'm like, oh, one time I did this. And like, so that's fun for me.
oh, and then that's partially how ideas come
Yeah.
out in regards to new dishes for Red Rabbit. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Having any type of team meeting, and that you said that's the most important thing for you, and really the most exciting thing is just to kind of get together and have that huddle to hype everybody up so that they feel like good about themselves and good about the day. Some people may not like when they go to work, they're like, oh, I got a whole day of work ahead of me. But it's kind of like doing a workout because you and I are
Yeah.
big into fitness, as we both know. Like a lot of time we're just like, oh, I don't want to do this workout. It's going to be so painful. And then, you just have that prep talk
Yeah.
and just remind yourself like you're doing it for a reason.
Yep. Whenever we have a barrier, my team's always like, but we got the kids fed, and like that's always our motto. Like, yeah, we have a mission. We're here. Like, we know what the goal is every single day. It does not change. It's the day itself, like, may vary, right? Because in culinary in general, like you never know what's gonna happen. Your oven might go down, its delivery might not come. Like we are always in the business of pivoting, right?
Nobody knows what's happening.
Nobody knows what's happening. And like the show must go on, right? Like it doesn't matter what has happened, what barriers have occurred. We still have to feed the kids.
Do you have a time frame?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we have, the kids in New York only get about 20 minutes to eat, so we have some pretty strict time targets. So we want to make sure that we're not running behind, because we don't want to bleed into that time. Like this is it's a really important part of the day for them.
Some
And
kids go to school and actually that's the meal for them because they can't afford that.
right, exactly, and so, we're very on top of it. So my team usually like, we'll do our huddles, but we also have a group chat. And so like, and I do this because I'm on a lot of phone calls through the course of my day, and sometimes it's hard for them to reach me. And so, like any emergencies, they'll put it in the chat. And they'll be like, "Hey, my oven was out. We ran out of gas." But they're good at like trying to flag things as soon as they know, so we have an opportunity to pivot. And so, sometimes it's a conversation with a partner to be like, "Hey, we might need a little more time." And sometimes, like we just have to switch production to another kitchen. You know, but we never not solve it. Sometimes I'm like, all right, bring it on. Like, what else you got? Like, we're gonna figure it out because we always feed the kids. There has not been one time that we haven't fed them.
So I think this is also something that I heard during COVID. Like there are some kids that, the parents were worried because their kids
Yep.
were not able to be fed because they go to school to actually
Yeah.
have these meals.
I mean, the communities that we serve and the charter schools that we work with are in underserved communities,
Yeah.
and so that is very much the reality that a lot of these kids, this is the sometimes the only meal that they get. It's something we take really seriously, and we want to make sure that every employee that's working with us also understands that, because it's a very important mission. We take it very, very seriously. I think, the pandemic was hard on everyone, but yeah, that was a very real concern. And us as an organization, schools were shut down, but we never stopped working.
Were you delivering food to the
We
houses?
Yeah, we pivoted and we did home delivery, so we were delivering food to the our partners, to the students at home. But then we were also serving the community, and so we were working with like West Harlem Group, World Central Kitchen, and we would just kind of drop it off to a few sites in Harlem, and families would line up and pick up meals.
I really felt for those families, especially during that. I could just imagine myself as a parent now. I could just imagine like how impacted I would feel if I was in that situation. So I think it's really great that Red Rabbit said, "Okay, we need to figure something out. We need to figure it out now because that's what they need." Have you ever gotten like a text, phone call, email, a notification from like a family member or a child that was like your like the way you handled the situation to feed my child? It really saved me. You really helped.
I mean, especially during the pandemic, we received a lot of like just emails or notifications from families being super grateful about it. I mean, so there was one that came from Bill, who's the CEO of one of the schools that we work with. And he was getting them from his families, and like he would just kind of like forward it to us. I mean, a lot of it was just kind of simple, like, we really enjoy the food. We're so grateful. Thank you. But there was a lot of really positive feedback. I mean, I think even before the pandemic, when I started out at Red Rabbit, I wasn't in the position that I am now. I started out as an assistant kitchen manager. And then when we started the on-site department, which is the department that I run, I was their first chef.
Oh,
And so I was the very first chef in the first school that we started to like cook on site at. And for me, that was my first experience really being able, like, seeing kids come up the line. Like, there was this one little boy who came up for breakfast 3 times, and it broke my heart. And every single time I would never say no. I'd be like, just here, grab it, take it, enjoy it, because you could tell that he came hungry, and it broke my heart, and it was just, for me, the moment was like, wow, this is real. Like, these kids, like, they're hungry, and like, I know that they enjoyed the food, but it was more than that. And you can tell it was more than that. And so, like,
it's also, and I think you mentioned this to me in a previous conversation. It's the foods that they're diverse foods, so
mhm,
it's stuff that they may actually be used to
yeah,
culturally,
they
right?
see it at home.
Yeah,
I mean, that was one of the moments that for me, I was just like, okay, this is why we do it.
that's incredible, honestly. And this also gives you a time after you've done something like that. It gives you a time to like just reflect and to see that you actually did something to change someone's life or to change your community, and in a way you're promoting kindness to the world, which is what people need. Do you feel like you need to be successful to be an artist, or what is your definition of being successful within the arts?
I don't think it has to be attached to like any like awards or accolades necessarily. Like, I'm very, very happy, in the work that I do and how I choose to express it. I think my success comes from, at work, it comes from building my teams, right? And seeing the results, seeing what we as an organization and as a team are able to accomplish together for the community.
Yeah.
But we also work with, a fair amount of our like hourly team members are also people from the community. I when I started at Red Rabbit, I was leading a small team of Dominican girls, actually,
Right.
that had just came not too long ago. And I think what really struck to me was that, like, there was this one young lady, Suhaiti, who had said to me she had never seen a female leader. And so that for her was really empowering. She had just never seen it. And so as we were getting to like work together, she had said to me, she's like, one day I want to be like you. And that really struck me because I was like, whoa, like, what? Like, I'm just a kitchen manager.
Right. Well, it motivates them because they see someone. that is them,
That is
that
them.
they're in their eyes, and that they can actually, that makes them believe that they
Yeah.
actually can do anything.
Yes. And so she, when I transitioned over to the onset and we started to build out this department, she was one of the first people that I took with me. And she's now one of my head chefs, and she's one of my best head chefs
At Red River.
at Red Rabbit. Yeah. She runs one of our schools in the Bronx. It's a high school with a primarily like Dominican and Puerto Rican demographic, and they love her food. And she's like the pride that you see in her, like her growth path. I mean, I'm proud of her. Like it's just, to see her when we started to not even think she had goals. So like now have like gone through, she was a packer
Yeah.
to a food service worker to an assistant head chef to a head chef, like it's pretty incredible. And like it's really great to see because now she has daughters.
Do you know maybe offhand that like because she took what inspired her, which is you, and did she kind of pay it forward?
Yeah, I mean, she's built her team. She has, in New York, I have 8 locations that I oversee, and her kitchen is probably one of the strongest. And she's taken some personalities and has really like been able to kind of get them focused. What I like to see is that now they have goals. I think for a long time, especially working in a commissary kitchen before we were actually on site in the schools and our team could really understand what the mission was and who our audience was, it was just a job, right? They're like, I show up, I cut fruit for 8 hours a day, and I go home. And like, that's all it was to them. And now, like, she's really helped in kind of like making everyone understand why we do what we do, right? Like, why is it important that you're paying attention to how this melon looks, right? Making sure that it's not rotten and it's beautiful and that we're packing it and like, how we're presenting it to the kids. Like, so she's really helped them kind of understand. And now they all want growth. And that's my goal. Like I want them to want to grow.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody. And look, if you want to just cut fruit 8 hours, that's okay too. That's fine. But they're all young and they, I want them to understand like, yeah, have goals. Please come after my job.
Yeah.
Go for it. And so like we just finished reviews. And so that's why I'm like so excited about it because the more and more people that we talk to and the more people that we've reviewed, they see themselves growing within the company.
I kind of think about that as also someone having a hobby. So, for example, like if they're taking music lessons or they're taking piano or doing theater, acting lessons, or even like taking a sport, you know, it's more than just taking that specific hobby. It's the commitment, it's the dedication that you do to that, which actually can propel you into your future and taking your career seriously because those things that you do younger, it may be like, I don't want to practice. I don't want to do this. But then, like, that practice could kind of set you up for your success because that shows your commitment to anything that you go
Yeah.
ahead and grow up into. And I think that's, if correct me if I'm wrong, that was kind of what you were touching upon. Like, you kind of just show up at a job, but then it's one thing to show up, but it's another thing to really just commit. And then, a lot of people have those aha moments,
Yeah.
especially with people that get inspired, such as you inspired her to do what she does now on a higher level.
Yeah. And I guess go back to your original question, that for me is success. I think being able to help other people grow, I think is important to me. And as well as just, I think on a personal level, success is being able to share what I love with my family, and the people that I love. So when I do get these opportunities, Thanksgiving has now officially become my holiday. And we come from a very large family of wonderful cooks. And, most holidays, everybody kind of brings something. But Thanksgiving, I want to do everything. And I will not let anybody bring anything, because that is like my Super Bowl, like that's my recital.
Right.
That's my moment. And so like I plan everything from the sides to the dessert. I like have a really strict plan through the course of the week. And then like, and it's funny because the Amada is always like, why do you do it? Like it's so much work. And I'm like, but I love to do it. Like I do it once a year and I do it because I love to. It is a lot of work.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't also do that in probably your day to day at your current job.
No, I don't.
In more of a higher administrative position because of how you've grown in your organization. But and so this is kind of your way of kind of just touching home with what you said.
It's my way. Yeah, it's exactly it. Like I don't cook as much anymore because I'm in a leadership role, so I'm just kind of like overseeing. But I always look at my dad's face because he's always so proud and like it makes me so happy.
Because then they say, I did well. Like
Yeah.
they reflect
Yeah.
on themselves. Yeah.
My dad actually recently said, I did like a brunch for my mom's side of the family. They were here from LA. And my dad goes, "You're my pride in the kitchen." And that was like a big moment for me because I've never wanted to disappoint my parents. And I not that I feel like I ever have, but like, my dad's a practical man and like, he would have been really happy if like I was an accountant. I'm not.
But any parent that would say something that like that to
Yeah.
their kids, it kind of clicks something in their head.
Yeah. Like when he said that, I was like, oh, I made it. I did it. He's proud. He's not worried.
Honestly, and I think that's all we can want, and that actually determines makes us more determined and to do more and to be more. I am sure that you have worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the culinary arts. You're probably getting several requests from new people who are in need of your services daily at Red Rabbit, or in general, even. How frequently do you reflect on your journey that led you to today?
Yeah. I mean, I reflect on my journey a lot. It's really just evolved. And COVID was a big part of it. I also think, the on-site model where we like make these chef prepared meals from scratch was something that started in the last 4 years. And it started with me. And I built this department. It's something else that I'm actually extremely proud of. And I think for me, one of the moments that I think really helped kind of bring it all together for me was when that shift had happened, I started to work directly with our CEO. Um, and it was probably one of the most nerve-wracking moments of my life because, like, I don't know, up until that point, like, I knew him, we spoke, but like, I didn't really work with him one on one. And like,
It's also intimidating.
it's so intimidating. And I was just like, this is either gonna go really great or I'm gonna get fired. At that point, I hadn't spent a lot of time on site. And so he, like, for 3 months, would pick me up every morning and we would go like tour all of our locations to see like the operations. And he like really got to see what I could do and then really just started to trust me, and like that gave me the confidence that I needed to really run this department. I think before that moment, I was really afraid to, I don't know, like even just make solid decisions about things, like he really gave me the confidence, like, okay, you know what you're doing. And like now, like we check in and I'm like, this is what's happening. This is happening. I did this here. And he's like, okay, cool, cool, cool. Or maybe not now, And so, but it's such a great feeling to just like have that like autonomy, to kind of really just be able to create something and like develop people, and we've grown. We were just in New York and now we're in New Jersey, we're in Philadelphia. Like we just continue to evolve every year. And so like, yeah, it was intimidating, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, hands down. And I mean, I just had my review with him and I told him that, because I learned what I got from him. I understood the vision, and I feel like I needed to just put the final pieces together. And for me to fully understand where his head was at and like how he was thinking about it, I was just like, okay, like I get it, like, because at the end of the day, I'm extremely passionate about this mission, right? It means a lot to me on a personal level, but this is this man's brainchild, his baby, and like, I don't want to mess up his baby. I just want to lead it. And I want to help it grow. I want to nurture it, with him and with the rest of the team.
Your success mission lines with his.
Yeah.
Yeah. As artists, a lot of the time, artists feel a sense of regret or, ooh, I should have done that a little differently. Do you ever get those feelings? Do you ever think about one instance where something just didn't like work out the way you'd hoped?
I don't have regrets. I think there's definitely been moments that I learned from. Sure, we all have bad days. You make bad decisions. They don't make you feel great, but I always take those opportunities to grow from them, to do better. So I don't like regrets. I don't have regrets because I feel like all of my mistakes have made me who I am today. And so if they hadn't happened, like they were important lessons for me.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And I feel like it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. And I started to adapt that myself because it really life unfolds and that's just what it is. And, maybe it's not exactly what you wanted, but it'll lead to something else
Yeah.
maybe you want.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a perfect example. Before Red Rabbit and after Olivier Chang, I worked for this company. It was maybe like it was a really short time and it just wasn't the right fit. Like I wasn't the right culture fit for them. They weren't the right culture fit for me, but like wherever I am, I want to do a good job and I want to work really hard at it. And that was really challenging for me because we were just not on the same page. It was a really hard space for me to be at. And I tried to quit and they like convinced me to stay. And then ultimately they let me go. And I was devastated. It was the right decision. And I knew, but I was devastated and I was embarrassed, to be honest. And I remember my dad, like, I hadn't even told my dad. I like told my sister and like she told my dad, and my dad had called me. And I was like so afraid that he was going to feel so disappointed. And he was just like, it's just a job, mama. It doesn't define you,
Yeah.
and I remember that so clearly because like it was comforting at the time because I was just I was embarrassed. And then that same day, the same day they let me go was the same day that I put my application in for Red Rabbit. Like for whatever reason, that morning I was like, I'm gonna do this application. And I did
Wow.
it and I filled it out. I answered all the questions. And then they called me the next day. Reese actually, the CEO, called me himself. And then that's when like it started the process. And so it was just one of those things that like everything happens for a reason. Like if I had doubted it before,
So interesting because if you think about it, I mean, this maybe they still would have called you if it didn't work out that day, and then the next day you didn't apply. Then let's say you waited like a week or a day. That day or a week or week and a half or 2 weeks could have made the difference of
the
also.
position could have been filled.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I just think the timing was like it was incredible. Like everything about that, and even when I sat with Reese during the interview, I mean, I remember feeling I was completely transparent and honest, like about what had happened to the other company and it not being a right culture fit. And like sometimes it's crazy because I'm like, should I be saying this? But like I never badmouthed anybody, but like it was just an honest experience for me. And it came because he had asked me, what is some of the best advice you have gotten? And I said, I was like, actually, recently, my dad reminded me that like a job doesn't define me. That was actually the exact thing that I was feeling because I started to question myself a lot. And during that interview process, I remember calling my assistant from my previous job from Olivia Chang, and I was like, "Was I good at my job or was I a sham? Were you what? Like, did you make me look good? Were you really the person that did everything?" Because I was really in my head about that. It really like impacted what I had accomplished, right? Like I was previously really proud of everything that I had done. And that one point in time really made me doubt everything. And it was terrible, terrible. And I walked into this job with Red Rabbit very fearful because of it, because I now had doubted my abilities. And it wasn't until like I really started to kind of like settle in and like I guess I found myself again.
You know, it was really interesting, and I was watching like a random video about this like last week or the week before that. Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul. He was actually talking about when he was a kid, he was not very good at basketball. And there was like this one season, one playing on a basketball team, he didn't score not 1 point. And then, he was kind of like saying, I'm not that good or whatever. And his father actually said, hey, it's okay. I still love you. And then that gave him the determination
To
to
keep going.
keep going. And then he started to practice more, get better and better and better until he became what he was. So I think even that just one little sense of reassurance can really just help someone
Yeah.
and bring them forward. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I really feel like our listeners would resonate to what you said because I feel like there's a lot of instances where people experience this and they just really need that selfish reassurance in any situation it is, whether it is, a job or a situation with a relationship with someone or something
Mhm.
else, that reassurance or that thing. Maybe it's just something that you just need that person to listen. They don't need to say anything. Maybe it is you want them to say something. But I think that's also a sense of healing for ourselves.
Yeah.
In the bio you sent me, you touched upon breaking societal boundaries, which I love that. I feel like it's super important to understand each other's cultures and what people may or may not feel comfortable with and to accept everyone for who they are. What about breaking societal boundaries speaks to you and why is breaking societal boundaries important?
It's what we do, right? Like Red Rabbit as organization, like, we don't see ourselves as a food service company. We're a social justice company. We match chefs to the school. I have a Jamaican chef. She's, doing jerk chicken. She's doing all these like incredible recipes, but then she's also exposing, the children to other diverse cultures. And I think, we remember these are underserved communities, and kind of what we want to do is bring this kind of experience, this restaurant style experience to a cafeteria, right? Because just because they're in an underserved community doesn't mean that they shouldn't have that luxury, that they shouldn't experience it, And I think that oftentimes you think that you can, I mean, I remember being in my 20s and thinking I could never afford to travel anywhere, right? And like it's a terrible thought process to have because like you didn't grow up with the means to maybe just be able to travel as often as you want. And then I was like, you know what? I can. And I started to save my money, and then I started to travel, and like, but it's just that, right? Like we do what society thinks we should do, right? Like, in these communities, these kids don't think that they deserve a good meal. They don't think that they can go to a nice restaurant and enjoy this experience. And so, like, we're trying to bring that experience to them in this cafeteria. There's a whole presentation aspect of it where we like help liven up their cafeteria, and we put up posters and we do plans and just kind of create an atmosphere that's really nice for them, right? So
They
they
feel like they're stepping into like a ball.
right. They feel like, and we find such like incredible reaction. Like we're at one high school in the Bronx, and they come in and they're like, "Whoa, we got this bomb ass food and like this fancy water," because we do like fresca, so we'll have like fruit water and stuff like that. And like you could see that they're like, for them, it feels so elevated, and it's sad that like they're coming in and like that elevation, like it's such a wow thing for them. And oftentimes they feel like they would never experience it elsewhere. And like that's what we don't want. We want like they are worthy of it. They should feel free to kind of like be able to have these experiences everywhere they go. And that's part of what we want them to remember. And our partners are very much in alignment as well. I work with one high school, and their director of ops is they're working on the building just to elevate the space for their kids, because they want it to be the space that they're super proud to walk into, and like it's a super cool school, and because that's not how they feel, right? And so it's important. It helps. These are young minds. We want them to kind of evolve from the way that people think now, and just really feel empowered to conquer anything that they put their minds to, regardless of what race they are, right? Or regardless of how they grew up, or whatever their barriers are in life. Like to be able to kind of push through and be like, yeah, I deserve this.
Has any kid ever came up to you and is like, "Oh, this is not usually what I'm used to having at home," or maybe like at a different school, maybe?
So we've heard, we often hear like, "Oh, my mom makes this at home," which is really cool, and sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, we don't know what it is," but then we use that opportunity. Our chefs are very engaging. They'll kind of talk them through it. They encourage them to try it, and then they do. We do not do like a typical school lunch, like we do pastelón de plátano, we do arroz con pollo, we do jerk chicken, we do curry chicken, but we learn about the students and the schools and the demographic. And then we try to kind of make sure that we're making a menu that, is culturally, we want everyone to see themselves.
Is there like a survey, or is there like how do you know? Like, how do you know?
So, it's been something that we don't have like a set process for it yet. We've been working on it as the years go on, but we ask the school for the demographic when we were onboarded. There's a few schools we've been at for a couple of years, so we've just learned a lot of the intel as we serve the kids. Kids are also very vocal, and so like we pay attention to everything. We kind of like every week when we have our menu meetings, we're like, oh, this came up. This kid said they want to see this on the menu, or they really like this. And so like we take all of that into account, and like our menus are every week they're different because we can operate that way,
And that also kind of provides opportunities for other cultures to get their.
right? So we're not set on like a cycle menu. There are a lot of like compliance aspects to it, right? Because we do work within the reimbursement rate for the school, so that they can kind of they're getting this like fine dining experience at a but they're getting reimbursed for it, so we're working with our partners. And so I do have to make sure that we're in line with our budget, and also that we're like hitting all the NSLP guidelines and targets. But I always tell my team, there is nothing that I can't make compliant. There's never a bad idea. Throw everything out there and then I will work backwards and then we'll make it compliant.
And that also makes people feel comfortable and like not feel like, oh, I'm going to break the rules or I'm going to do something that, is going to get me terminated or whatever,
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I had asked you in a previous conversation if you were to provide one or multiple one word answers on how your art has impacted you. You said the words happiness, togetherness, and important. I was hoping you could elaborate on this a bit for our audience and what these words mean to you.
Like I said before, is my love language, right? It brings people together. Who doesn't like food? Like it's like
Go out with friends or whatever.
right, yeah,
It's the first thing you think about to do together. You eat.
you eat, it literally brings people together, and for me, when I have an opportunity to host and like be the person that brings people together through my food, like it brings me a lot of joy. Like it makes me happy, it makes me happy to be able to share it. And that it's important to me. I mean, it's literally, I feel like it's in every aspect of my life, from my personal life to my work life.
The key word you just said is to share it because, you're sharing the opportunity to experience the same, ideas of taste with that person, to relate about maybe a time that you guys had it, or, that could also spark different memories of previous times that we met with families or friends or anything. And it kind of just brings back good memories. Maybe some people not so good memories, but not in a sense where it may be like bad, maybe just like you miss it,
Yeah.
like
I mean, it's also comforting, right? A lot of people go to food to just even comfort themselves. It reminds you of something or someone, or, I think about Lila a lot, my niece, because she's one of the things that I love about her is that anything that I make for her, she will blindly eat. She has this blind trust in anything that I make, that like she can be picky, right? And like we'll go out, she'll be like, no, I don't think I like that. But if I say, hey, Lila, I made this, and like I know you don't like fish, she'll try it. She will always try anything because she has that much trust and faith in me. Actually, for her birthday, I made a pizza party for her and her friends. And like we rolled out the dough and everybody kind of like did their toppings. And like I had just a ton of toppings, and all her friends did like just cheese and pepperoni. And Lila had like this like supersized pizza with like ham and pineapples and mushrooms and anchovies and like, and yeah, and like everything. And her friends were like, really? You're gonna eat that? And for me, it was such a proud moment because I was like, yeah, you're gonna eat that. Like, you're gonna try everything. And you're like, she has such a good palate, like she's not shy to eat good food.
and the confidence that she shows is going to convince others most
Right.
likely to do it too.
Right. And she didn't let herself be embarrassed by it, which is something else that often happens. And like often, kids don't want to eat school foods because they feel like that there's a stigma against it, right? Like there's an embarrassment about like them going to grab the schoolie is what the kids call it these days. And so like having that confidence is important, right? Because when you're at that age, you influence other students. And for her, I'm very proud of her because she's a very mature young lady, and she does have that confidence to like be like, yeah, I like this, and what?
Yeah. And I honestly feel like that's super important. Again, people, it's very contagious to follow other people, especially with people that have confidence. And so that's what, role models has to do with a lot of that, where people that have confidence and have been successful or do things that they are sure about it, that's going to convince other people. And Lila's convincing other people in a positive way. We spoke a little bit about the organization you work at with Red Rabbit and how you kind of help people with your food, but like, are there any like friends or family that you kind of like go out with, maybe on a daily and you just have good food with them and like they really kind of just need that time to escape from whatever? Is there any like specific moments like that?
Yeah, I have a good friend, Erin, who is also a very talented pastry chef and has a lot of cookbooks. And she actually used to live in this neighborhood, and I miss her dearly because she's moved back to Kansas. But like every time, and even now when she does come and visit, that's like what we plan to do. Like we pick a good restaurant, we get some good food, and we catch up. And sometimes it leads to some really like deep conversations. And sometimes it's just like really lighthearted and fun and just like catching up. But it's always, like that's I mean, it's how we met. We met through food, and it's how we bond, and it's how I think one of the best ways that we communicate with each other. Yeah, it's always fun to be able to go out with somebody who also appreciates food, you know?
It's also interesting that you said that. I just kind of, because this was another conversation that I had with someone where you're more than likely to be able to have and sustain a conversation with someone if you have interest with them. Whereas if you do have nothing in common with that other person, it's like, hey, how are you? Oh, where do you live? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And then that's it,
And then that's it.
But
Yeah.
and if you have something that you are actually able to kind of relate to, those boundaries or those barriers break down,
Mhm.
because then you start to feel like a sense of, I'm able to talk about this, and we're able to kind of bounce off of each other and perhaps learn things that from each other that you guys didn't know about each other or about your craft in general.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. When I met Aaron, it was so funny because we met working together with a food photographer. And we could not be more different in personalities. And I think that like from the outside looking in, a lot of people would probably never think that the two of us would have become like best friends, good friends. We, through this, we really bonded working together with this food photographer. And like now we're over 15 years of friendship, all revolving around food. And she's one of my dearest, dearest friends. It's just incredible because like from the outside, I mean, people see us all the time and like probably wouldn't even think that we have the same things in common.
Do you guys get like advice from each other as
Oh, all the time. All the time. From everything from food to life, like we're also, very personally involved. I know her husband, she knows my partner, we're all friends together. And so, we have mutual friends. And so, we we touch base on a lot of really like just personal, sometimes even heavy stuff, heavy experiences. And then, we connect over food. Like I think food was just it's just how we met, but it's not why we stay together.
that's funny. But then sometimes that's just happens, and yeah, you can have polar opposite, personalities, but maybe that also brings you closer.
Yeah.
If you were to go back in time, what would you tell your younger self when you were looking for healing through your art? Would you have said something that might have been helpful for your journey?
I mean, don't give up. Don't be scared to color outside the lines. I think, life is not perfect, and I don't think it's meant to be perfect. And I think I feel like people always aim for perfection and they can't embrace the chaos,
Yeah.
and like sometimes that chaos is really beautiful. We scare ourselves a lot for no reason. I recently was asked to speak to one of our partners had asked me to speak to their high school students for this like I commit ceremony. And what I really wanted to kind of for them to take away is just don't be afraid, right? Like I've reinvented myself so many times. I switched careers kind of in pursuit of my happiness,
Yeah.
because it's important for me to do something that I love. And I think that's really important for a young mind to understand that, like, just because life tells you that you need to fit in this box, you don't have to fit in that box. Like, really find something that you're passionate about and then work towards it. And if you work towards it, you'll achieve your goals. And it might not always look the way that you want it to look, but you'll get there. And whatever that journey is that gets you there is going to be better than anything you could have ever imagined. Even the barriers that come with it, kind of help develop who you are. And so like I just don't want anybody to be afraid to kind of experience or
So would you tell that to not only to your younger self, but would you tell that to other people who are looking for healing simultaneously?
yeah, yeah,
It would be the same advice.
that would be the same advice.
Liliana, thank you so much for taking the time with us on an artist's way of healing and for sharing your story with us. I could definitely say that you have impacted lives today in a positive way with your words, wisdom, and most importantly, the story you shared that led to your fulfilling journey as an artist. I hope people also get inspired to find their own journeys through art. I can imagine that your journey is not over, nor will it ever be over, as we as artists are continuing to learn through our art every day. Through our art, we learn, grow, expand ourselves, and discover things within ourselves that we never knew existed. This is part of our healing process. Our healing through our art keeps us going and thriving. It helps lead us to more healthy, successful, and fulfilling lives. I really admire the fact that although you have a really big title within your organization, you always come back to your personal mission to help others that are in need, and you continue to stay humble about what you do in your culinary career. With people like you, This is how we can make this world a better place. Our communities rely on each other to grow and prosper to its fullest potential. It is definitely something that you provide a beacon of hope to those who need it. You provide the determination to work hard and are an advocate for the communities that you represent, and I am sure they love and admire you for it. As I have known you my whole life, your hard work, dedication, and work ethic has also inspired me on countless occasions, and you continue to inspire me to be better as a person and to help those in need. You also remind me to, of course, take some time out of my day to self-care and self-motivate me, as this is what drives me to fulfill my ultimate personal missions. With that said, thank you all again for tuning in. I'll see you next time, friends.